If you are learning to drive right now, or you know someone who is, what I am about to tell you could completely change your plans. A brand new set of driving rules is landing on the 1st of October 2026, and it is being called the biggest shakeup to learner driver licensing in almost 70 years. If you think you can just pass your theory test and jump straight into a practical test next week, that is about to change forever. Stick around because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what is coming, who it affects, and what you need to do right now to avoid getting caught out. Let's get straight into it. The reform is called Graduated Driver Licensing, or GDL for short, and it has been confirmed by Infrastructure Minister Liz Kimmons as part of a new Road Safety Strategy Action Plan. Right now, this confirmed start date of the 1st of October 2026 applies specifically to Northern Ireland, where officials are describing it as the most significant reform to driver licensing and testing in almost 70 years. But do not switch off if you are in England, Scotland, or Wales, because very similar ideas are already being discussed and consulted on across the rest of the UK, and there is a real chance that what happens in Northern Ireland becomes the blueprint for the whole country. So whether you are learning in Belfast or Birmingham, this affects your future. So why is this happening at all? The government's own figures paint a pretty stark picture. Drivers aged between 17 and 23 hold only around 8% of driving licenses, yet they are responsible for roughly 24% of fatal or serious collisions. Read that again. A tiny slice of license holders are involved in almost a quarter of the most serious crashes on the roads. Across the UK more broadly, young male drivers aged 17 to 24 are about 4 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured compared with drivers over the age of 25. Officials have also pointed out that 1 in 5 newly qualified drivers crash within just 12 months of passing their test. These are not just statistics on a page, they represent real families and real tragedies, and that is the driving force, quite literally, behind these new rules. Now let's break down exactly what graduated driver licensing actually means for you as a learner. The first big change is a mandatory 6-month minimum learning period. At the moment, in theory, you could pass your theory test on a Monday and book your practical test for the following week if you were lucky enough to get a slot. Under the new system, that is gone. You will need to wait a minimum of 6 months between starting your learning journey and being allowed to sit your practical driving test. The idea here is simple. 6 months gives you time to actually build real experience in different weather, in the dark, on busy roads, in roundabouts that terrify every learner driver on earth, rather than cramming just enough skill to scrape a pass and then being unleashed on the roads with almost no real-world exposure. The second change is a mandatory training logbook. This is not just a nice-to-have. It is a required document that will need to be signed off before you are even allowed to book your test. You will be expected to log hours of practice across a set list of competencies. Think night driving, motorway-style conditions, rural roads, town center driving, roundabouts, and dealing with hazards. Instructors and supervising drivers will need to confirm you have actually done the work, not just claim you have. This is designed to stop learners from turning up to their test having barely driven outside their own postcode. The third major change is an extended R-plate period. If you already know a bit about new driver rules, you might know that some places use a single year of restrictions after passing. Northern Ireland is extending that R-plate period to 2 full years. During this window, you are not just a fully qualified driver treated exactly the same as someone who passed 20 years ago. You are still classed as a novice, and there are specific restrictions that come with that R-plate. One of the biggest of those restrictions relates to carrying passengers. In the first 6 months after passing your test, there will be limits on who you can have in the car with you, especially other young or inexperienced passengers. Break this rule, and you're not just looking at a slap on the wrist. Reports suggest fines of up to £1,000 and 3 penalty points for breaching passenger restrictions, and a similar penalty structure for failing to display your R-plate at all. If you are the kind of learner who has already been dreaming about driving your mates to the cinema the day after you pass, this is the rule that is going to sting the most, so plan accordingly. Now here is a piece of good news buried in all of this. Under the new system, learners will actually be allowed motorway access while accompanied by an approved driving instructor. And once you have passed and you are in your R-plate period, you will be able to drive on motorways at the normal posted speed limit rather than being restricted to a lower speed. That is a genuine improvement because right now, so many new drivers pass their test having never once driven on a motorway, and then they are expected to merge onto a 60-mile-an-hour carriageway completely unsupervised. This change means you will get proper motorway experience while you still have a qualified instructor sitting next to you, which honestly should have happened years ago. Let's talk about penalties for a moment because this is not a system with empty threats attached. Failing to display your R plate during that 2-year novice period could lead to a fine of up to £1,000 and 3 penalty points on your license. Carrying an unauthorized passenger during the first 6 months after passing could carry the same level of fine and points. If similar rules end up being adopted in England, Scotland, and Wales, expect penalty structures along the same lines. This is being treated with the same seriousness as things like mobile phone use while driving, so do not assume you can quietly ignore an R plate once you have passed. Enforcement is very much part of the plan. Now, I know some of you watching this are thinking, hang on, what about the rest of the UK? I am learning in England or Scotland or Wales. Does any of this actually apply to me right now? Here is the honest answer. As things stand, the confirmed 1st of October 2026 start date for full graduated driver licensing is specifically for Northern Ireland. However, the rest of the UK is not sitting still. The Department for Transport has been running a consultation on introducing a very similar mandatory minimum learning period between passing your theory test and taking your practical test in England, Scotland, and Wales. That consultation looked at proposals for a minimum wait of around 6 months, essentially mirroring what Northern Ireland is now bringing in. Nothing has been confirmed as law yet for the rest of the UK, and you can still currently book a practical test right after passing your theory test if you are learning in Great Britain, but that window may be closing. On top of that, there have already been real, confirmed changes to how driving tests are booked across England, Scotland, and Wales in 2026. As of May 2026, only the learner driver themselves is legally allowed to book, change, or cancel their own practical test. Instructors and third-party booking services can no longer do this on your behalf, which is designed to stop bots and resellers hoarding test slots and reselling them. On top of that, learners are now limited to just 2 changes to their test booking after it is made. Change your mind a 3rd time, and you will need to cancel and start the booking process again from scratch. And since June 2026, if you do need to move your test, you can only move it to your original center or one of the 3 nearest test centers, which stops people bouncing their test booking around the entire country chasing a slightly earlier slot. There are also ongoing discussions about tightening drink drive limits specifically for learners and newly qualified drivers across the UK, potentially bringing the limit down to something close to a zero-tolerance policy compared with the standard limit that currently applies to experienced drivers. Nothing here is locked in as law yet for learners outside Scotland, where the limit is already lower than England and Wales, but it shows you the direction of travel. The overall goal that keeps coming up again and again in every one of these proposals is the same: cut the shockingly high number of deaths and serious injuries involving young and newly qualified drivers, with a target of reducing road deaths and serious injuries by around 2/3 by 2035. So what should you actually do with all of this information if you are learning to drive right now or about to start? First, do not panic, but do plan ahead. If you are in Northern Ireland, you are now working within a confirmed 6-month minimum learning window starting from the 1st of October 2026. So factor that timeline into when you realistically expect to be driving independently. If you are anywhere else in the UK, keep a close eye on the outcome of the ongoing consultations, because a similar minimum learning period could land on your side of the Irish Sea sooner than you think. Second, start building good habits now rather than waiting for a logbook to force you to. Get experience in the rain, in the dark, on roundabouts, in slow-moving traffic, and yes, on motorways if you get the chance with an instructor. The new rules are basically rewarding exactly the kind of well-rounded practice that good instructors have been recommending for years anyway. So getting ahead of it puts you in a stronger position, regardless of what officially becomes law. Third, if you are learning in England, Scotland, or Wales, make sure you understand the new booking rules that are already in force. Book your own test, keep your instructor's reference number handy when you book so the system checks their availability too, and only make a change to your booking when you genuinely need to, because you only get 2 chances before you are back to square one. And finally, once you do pass, do not treat your new driver status as some kind of finish line where the learning stops. Whether or not an R plate is legally required where you live, drive like you are still building experience for at least the first year, because statistically, that is exactly the period where new drivers are most at risk. Driving rules do not change like this very often, and when they do, it usually means the people making the decisions have looked hard at the data and decided the current system simply is not working well enough. Whatever you think about the restrictions, 6 months of extra practice, a logbook of real-world experience, and a longer period of lighter restrictions after passing are not designed to punish you. They are designed to make sure you actually survive your first year on the road. Take that seriously, and you will end up a genuinely safer, more confident driver either way. If this video helped you understand what is changing and why, that is exactly why I make these videos, to cut through the confusion and give you the real, practical picture without wading through pages of government documents yourself. If you found this useful, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next update the moment more of these rules become confirmed for the rest of the UK. Drop a comment letting me know whether you are learning in Northern Ireland or the rest of the UK, and whether you think these changes are a good idea or way too strict. I read every single comment, and I will be covering the next developments the moment they land. Thanks so much for watching, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you never miss an update from my channel.